My name is Marg. Oh, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marg Whitinger, and I am a recovering Roman Catholic. It was interesting listening to Bob because there's really some similarity, little bits. I was raised on a small farm, one of 8 children. We too did not have a lot of money. I remember my mom going to rummage sales, and she would trace our feet on newspaper, and then she would take that along, and that's how we would get shoes. Because of course she didn't want to drag all of us along to a rummage sale. We're of German heritage, and of course we all know that children are seen but not heard. We had great respect for authority, definitely our parents. Actually all adults, and especially the sisters. I went to a small parochial school. There were, in fact, first, second, and third grade were all in one room. There were 6 of us in my class up until about the 5th grade, very small, tight group. I still cannot fathom how the sister kept us all quiet while she taught the different grades, but we were. We went to Mass every morning. I was what I guess you'd call a very religious child. At home, I made altars. I always had altars with the various statues, and I liked to play Mass with my sisters. They didn't take it as seriously as I did, but it was something very, very special. So that's up to the 3rd grade. Then in the 4th grade, this is right about the time when Vatican II came through, I had a sister, Julia, in 4th grade. And she was the first nun that actually exposed a little bit of hair. They still had the long gowns, but they had the little bit of hair sticking out. And she was absolutely beautiful. Many of the other nuns were these short, plump little ladies with the little wire glasses. Julia was tall and had beautiful, dark, wavy hair, and she was different. I was 9 years old, and at that same year, I was confirmed. Not that that was a really great age to be confirmed, because of course confirmation is your introduction into the adult realm of church. But because we were such a small parish, we were grouped with 3 other parishes, and then the bishop made rounds and everybody got confirmed at that point. And so there was just a lot that was, I guess, introduced to us as 9-year-olds. You know, imagine that. And it's odd, you know, now I'm standing here thinking 9 years old. I mean, Everett is 9 years old, my grandson. And the one thing that Sister Julia did that has been in my brain ever since is that she explained miracles. Miracles were no longer miracles. They were explainable phenomena. I will give you an example. Parting of the Red Sea never happened. Never happened. Moses said to all of the people that were with him, now when we get to the Red Sea, it's kind of a marshy area where we're crossing. You want to tread lightly. There's big clumps of ground. You kind of hop from place to place and spread out, because if you all go through in one bunch, we're going to sink. And so they did. And as they're about halfway through, gingerly making their way, the army comes with all their chariots and their horses, and they just plow right in after them, because they can see them. They're right up there. We can get them now. And so they plow in and they sink. So there was no dividing of the sea and walking through on dry land. Wedding at Cana. Never the water into wine business, no. What happened was they would serve the good wine to the people first of all. And then when they got a little bit to drink, then they would switch it out for the mediocre wine. And then when that went away, then Mary went to Jesus and said, hey, you know, we're out of wine. And they said, oh, we don't have any more. And he goes, oh, yes, you do. You got the good stuff in the back because you switched it out. This is what we were told as 9-year-olds. Feeding of the 5,000 never happened. What it was is that it took a long time to go from place to place because it was on foot. And so people always packed food with them. They never went anywhere without a substantial bit of food that they packed along. And so when they all sat down and the people were hungry and the disciples said, you know, Jesus, what are we going to feed these guys? He says, well, here, we've got a couple of loaves and fish here. He said, let's set a good example and pass them out. And he said, just wait to see what happens. And sure enough, the people were very moved by this. And so they said, you know, I got some things to share. And so they started unpacking all of their things and sharing it. And so this was, you know, it was a good thing for us to hear that Jesus set this positive example. But there was not, you know, they were not materializing out of these 3 loaves and 5 fishes or whatever that was. Lazarus coming to the, you know, coming to life didn't happen. Back then, their medical skills were a little bit mediocre. And so they were burying people alive left and right. And so Jesus came and said, they said, oh, Lazarus died and you weren't here, and if you were here, he wouldn't have died. And he goes, let me check into this, you know. So unrolled the stone, goes in there, and sure enough, Lazarus is like, who put the lights out? You know? So Lazarus comes out. Okay, so again, this was like telling kids, and the reason why I didn't want the kids to be here is because I think they're still believers in Santa, okay? Otherwise, I would love to have them here. So this was like telling a 9-year-old, there's no Santa. And it was very odd because Sister Rosetta had told us that all of these miracles and all of the saints, and it was wonderful, and it was something that I would think about all the time because it meant so much to me. The stories were so... I loved all of the stories. And then Sister Julia comes in and dashes it all against the rocks. So then, 5th and 6th grade, I have Sister Justice and Sister Casimira. And we're back to the Sister Julietta, or back to the Rosetta type of beliefs. And very, you know, you do certain things a certain way, and you are quiet and respectful, and all the miracles came back, and it just did not sit right with me. So from there, I went to middle school, and middle school was evil. I mean, it was rough, because I was one of those kids that really bought into the, you know, you care for the poor and vulnerable. I mean, my mother did it, and even though we didn't have a lot, she was also always saving things. I remember one year I got 2 dolls, one from my godmother and one from my godfather. And all of a sudden, one day I wake up and one of them is gone. And I was really upset, and I said, what happened? And Mom said, no little girl deserves 2 dolls. So I gave it to someone that didn't get any dolls. And it was like, you know, I was really shocked, because I was a little kid, you know. So anyway, I get into middle school, and I experienced bullying for the first time. And so what do? As a good Catholic little girl, I go over, and when they knock the books out of this one boy's arms, he's walking down the hall totally minding his own business, shove him up against the lockers, knock his books out. I dash over there, and I'm helping him pick it up. Immediately, I am pegged. And so I can't walk down the hall without having my books tossed out of my arms and having me thrown up against the locker. Or, you know, it was very hard, and it was very hard. The other thing is that, unfortunately, during that time, CCD was taught by the priest that we had. And he, no matter when you saw him, he always smelled very strongly of alcohol. He obviously had a problem. And so my mom did not care for him for another reason. She had, her last child died as a result, you know, through childbirth. And when he came to see her in the hospital, he smelled of alcohol and had nothing reassuring to say to her. She said he basically stood in her room and looked out the window, and so we did not have to go to Sunday school. We never did. Never went to CCD, and so it was like this huge break in what was this comforting surroundings. You know, I really, really loved church. I loved the sisters. You know, Sister Julia was a little off, but the rest of them were just, everything was very warm and cozy, and so that all went away. Then I met my first husband. He was Episcopalian, and because of course, what Sister Julia said and the other sisters, I started to question things, and you just didn't question things. My parents had no understanding other than what they were taught, and they didn't really allow for a lot of variation from that. You know, that's faith, that's what you believe, there's no questioning, end of story. And I started to question things. So when I went to what they call the Inquirer's class, it was like, and they referred to it as Catholic Light, you know, I think that's commonly known about Episcopalians. They're Roman Catholic, but on the lighter side. And so I could understand that, and I could feel as though I wasn't giving up my base. Because I carried around a lot of guilt, of course. Unfortunately, that was not a good marriage, and after 3 years, we had our marriage annulled. I ended up going back to school for my bachelor's degree at Marian College. At the time it was Marian College. And I remember a really awesome class that I needed to take, and that was a theology class. And we had to read a book called The Bible, Myth, Fable, and Truth. And I loved that book because it was okay to question. And it actually was kind of like a wonderful slurry of Sister Julia and Sister Rosella, Sister Casimira, and Sister Justice. And it was just a wonderful, it gave me permission to kind of think outside of the lines a little bit. One of the things that they talked about was that the way that the Bible was written supported them at that point in time in history. A lot of their laws and rituals were written because of the Bible. You know, when you're little, you're thinking the Bible was written by Jesus or by his disciples at that point in time. And really, it was written, as you all know, over a number of different years. And so again, that's why things were written the way they were, because they supported what they were doing at that point in time. I remember when I first attempted to read the Bible, the Old Testament was very troubling to me because God was mean. He would have them go out and take over lands and move these people out and kill every man, woman, child, animal. What did the animals do? But every single one, anything alive was supposed to be killed. And I thought, that's not my God. It was very troubling. And it's funny, after listening to Bob, I'm feeling as though I'm talking very much on almost a child level. But I guess you have to understand how much an impression my early education had on me. I did start to explore other religions, and what I loved about it was that the more that I looked, the more the same things seemed to be. And that was really comforting. Just the idea of just loving each other, being mindful of what your blessings are. And if you have blessings, to spread them. Care for the less fortunate. Take time to think and reflect and to pray. And to respect and care for the environment. And all of that makes such absolute sense to me. And I was, the more I looked, the more I found that supported all of those things, and I was very, very happy. I was content and I was okay with all of that. I made donations to what I considered to be good causes. I lived within my means. I would volunteer occasionally, but I missed community. So that kind of fast forward to just a few years ago, I came upon the UU because you had a rummage sale. And it's in my blood. Rummage sales, that is. And I came in and everybody was so warm and friendly and welcoming. I liked the environment. I liked that it was a simple environment. One of the things I always struggled with was the grand cathedrals and all of the things that they put into it and the vestments that the priests would wear. I remember one year we worked our tails off on this rummage sale, craft sale around Christmas time. I remember at the Episcopal Church. And we made $310. And we gave that to a mission so that they could afford to have 2 teachers that year. And within the same announcement, they were talking about $500 that was spent on new vestments. And I remember thinking, what? It didn't make sense to me. So I like this place. I love this place. And it always bothered me with the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, the last place that I would want to go to visit is Rome. I know that, I should look at it from a historical level, but it's not history. It's how they live now. It's all of the pomp and circumstance. And I always thought, is that for the glory of God, or is it for the glory of the people that are in it? When I went to the rummage sale, I saw Audrey. And I know Audrey from the hospital. Actually, St. Francis Home is, connected to the hospital. And I remember working with her on some United Way activities, and I just really liked Audrey. And when I saw Audrey here, I thought, this is a good place. And then a number of you others had said to me, you should really come and come to a Sunday and just see how we operate here. And don't come just once, you have to come a few times, because of course there's such variety in our services. It's really, really neat. And so I did, and I stayed. And it's you, because you live what the seven principles are. And I'm just gonna, I know you guys know them like the back of your hand, but I'm just gonna go through them because they mean so much to me. When I think about affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, that's golden. Pursuing justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. Accepting one another and encouraging spiritual growth. Pursuing a free and reasonable search for truth and meaning. I was so glad to hear Bob say that he hasn't gotten it all figured out, because I haven't either. But it's so neat because we are kindred spirits in that way. Respect the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. Promote a goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. I always smile inwardly and actually outwardly, for that matter, when I see how much we are in our community. I see you people everywhere, and it's just so cool. We have such a presence. I'm sure that there are people out there that think that we're at least 10 times as big as what we are because we're everywhere. And it's such a neat thing to see. We are all about action and involvement. We are small, but we are mighty. And so even though, and I'm going back a little bit when I said that there is no Santa, there is no Santa, but there's something even better. Because Santa's here once a year, and we are here 365 days a year. And that's the best part. And then I'm going to close with one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.